And this is Trekland HQ, and we are live. 6 years of the Trek Files and RIP Gary Graham with guest Steve D'Erico today, all on episode 241 of the Trek Files, yes, of Trekland Tuesdays live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks, just bringing you some clarity and sanity and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. Thank you all today, especially live with us, for your patience. Hey, I want to get right into things. First off, if you have found your way here to us, welcome, welcome. If you're still hanging with us, if you are here, we have a great community. We have a chat community, the TTLers globally, if the globe is still with me. They will be here. Here we go. Everybody here, thank you for your patience. If you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, jump in the chat. We've got another, well, this is a split day. I'm going to talk just for a minute, and then we also have a guest. So we will see how we do about the chat on the other side. Normally I do a little soapbox, and then we would look at all the chat later on, but we may get into this a little bit with our guest and our second topic today. We got an A story and a B story today. But most of all, thank you for being here. If you're coming in on YouTube, please like and subscribe, ring the bell, do all the silly YouTube things. But just know that if you're on Twitch or YouTube, you'll see all the comments in the chat. If you're on Facebook only, you'll only see the Facebook comments, all right? And just a real quick word to say that today, this week, and I think even today, is the 6th anniversary, right off the gate, of our podcast with Roddenberry Podcast, the Trek Files. Yes, are you a Trekophile? I know a lot of you are. I just wanted to say we just had an Emmy winner who talked about taking time for herself to honor that, and I just want to say I want to thank Eugene Roddenberry now, and my good buddy John Champion for producing. They came to me with the idea 6 years ago. It was 2018, a year after I started this little enterprise, and said, we want to do something. Eugene said, we want to do something with my dad's papers that aren't sitting in a library, that are publicly accessible. There's so much more. And we want to do a podcast in some kind of a format to do that with a guest who's from the industry or related to the document. And we want you to do it. So I have been, and it's going to be simple, just a simple 15, 20-minute one. If you're on a long commute, you can listen to 2 or 3. So every week with a hiatus twice a year, we're now in our 11th season, 6 anniversaries, and just so many great, we started with Eugene, was our first guest, obviously, and been mining everything from artwork and photos to memos and letters to Gene, letters from Gene, from fans, from celebrities, all kinds of material, and promotional, because the bucks off of script memos, all kinds of material, if it leads us to a point. Because as with everything, to me, history is not just about dusty dates and people. It's how is it relevant then, and how is it relevant to today? What are the ripple effects? How compare and contrast. And it's not just about Star Trek either. It's about Star Trek and also Gene, the man that gave us Star Trek, so that so many people could carry the torch later. Yes. So we're looking at daily life. We're looking at education. We're looking at his college speaking years and the guruification of Gene. We're looking at his early shows. There's now a podcast from Roddenberry called Genealogy that actually dives into his other works before Star Trek, his one-off scripts, third-party freelance scripts for other people, as well as the Lieutenant, as well as, his whole career, script-wise. But we're looking at scripts and origins. We've done shows with the Lieutenant, but they've all had to do with Gene, which ultimately has to do with Star Trek. And even after Gene's death, Majel's papers we've had, and gotten into some of the things about Majel and her impact on Star Trek as well, if they're in the Roddenberry family company archives. It's been an incredible journey. We've done things like find the original human Isis cat from Assignment Earth, April Tatro Snyder. Although she wasn't lost, she knew where she was the whole time. finding, although I've since realized that it was out there, but publicizing the original Next Generation format when they thought Gene wouldn't be involved. And then doing things like, having guests that are no longer with us. And I'm talking about Dorothy Fontana, 6 episodes with Dorothy. That was such a blessing. Composer Gerald Fried, we actually talked to him just about a year before he passed. And he was still dinging the bell there. He was pretty witty when you stopped to listen to what he was saying. It was pretty great. And then Richard Arnold, who sat at the right hand of Gene for so many years as a fan consultant in the building, and was part of many stories that are still yet to be told, I think. But, we've had guests that are no longer with us. And sometimes the shows are about the document that we talk about, and sometimes the shows are about our guest. And we have a document that illuminates them. And sometimes it's a family member from someone who has passed, or someone who knows people from fandom who had professional links, some amazing people from 70s and 80s fandom, including this week's guest, who was the longtime runner of the William Shatner Letter Exchange. So if you haven't seen today's episode, I encourage you to go over and talk about Star Trek Live, Gene Live, Bill Shatner Live, and what that was like, and some cool mementos in the documents, always a document. And we had live shows, live at cons we finally started doing. I was so blessed to have Andrea Kindred, who's Gene Coon's original assistant, and so much more of her live. She's a force of nature. Amazing. She worked with the civil rights leaders in the 60s, Martin, Medgar, and Malcolm, as she would say. 80 years old now and in Australia, but she was a guest live at Vegas. The great Aaron Walke from Prodigy. We've had Trek Files live and on camera. You can find them on my YouTube channel here. And I don't know, starting off this season with Jonathan Frakes reading his reading scenes from 1987. That was a special moment. So yeah, the Trek Files has been an awesome gift and a blessing. And I say it's the only podcast with homework. We always have the Trek Files there on our Facebook site or wherever you get it. You can come over and find them. We are working on the community. There's still bigger and better things to come as we go through this year. I just want to take a minute to mark the anniversary. It doesn't align with any numerical, equivalent there. But stay tuned, because one of the things, as well as keeping up with the format, is I'm really after finding a better community space. And we've thought about Discord, different places. Right now you have the Facebook just week to week place under the documents or under the podcast links. And we're looking for something better. We are hopefully going to have something to announce this year. So stay tuned. Trekophiles, spelled with an F. I just wanted to let everybody, I just want to take a moment. And yeah, it's my own show on the other side, but I'm just give you a little bit of background there and insight. And I don't know, hopefully everybody's got their own. The thing about the community is I run into people all the time at cons or just in threads, and people say, "Oh, I love the Trek Files." And I'm always like, "You do?" I know we have listeners and viewers out there, but we don't have much of a sense of community. So that I don't know. It's the one thing I'm involved in that is that way. So we're going to work on that. That's been a number one list, aside from just continuing to keep the bar high for the quality shows, the documents, and the guests, and always adhere to all the goals that we had for the show starting out. Now, that was going to be my main topic this week, and maybe indulge a little bit more there. But last night, late night, we got the sad word that the great Gary Graham had passed suddenly. And we're hearing things that it's, as you would expect with something sudden, heart-related issues, neural, stroke-related-ish. Anyway, hopefully went fairly quickly. But his former wife and his daughter have been out, basically broke the news to the world. And we're still awaiting, there'll be memorials coming in today. Of course, Gary came to my attention co-starring in Alien Nation, which was an early Fox show and a stab at sci-fi, but on a modern budget, not having to build spaceships and ray guns, but the alien makeups. And eventually the entire main cast of Alien Nation wound up guest starring on Star Trek. So he was the last. So it was interesting to see when Gary was cast as Ambassador Soval on Enterprise in that recurring role. And, Enterprise didn't always quite get its what am I trying to say? Didn't always get its due. But as the years have gone by, more and more people are appreciating Enterprise, and that includes Gary. And I think just in the last year or two, a lot of the fan base has come to appreciate him too. He had a band organizing, right? I know he played at Nichelle Nichols' farewell convention. Anyway, you know what? I was lucky enough here on the spur of the moment and on short notice. I want to bring in someone who's been a guest with us on Portal 47, not once, but twice. Again, this is why I love Portal 47, and it's why everything I do, it's the folks that you may not hear from who have so much to give you to background Star Trek. So Steve, come on in. We had some tech issues at the beginning, but boom, there we are. How you doing, sir, now?
Larry, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. And I wondered, so Steve was a security officer at Paramount who was assigned to the last years of Voyager, the last 2 years. What was it,
Last
Steve?
2 seasons of Voyager, all 4 years of Enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek Insurrection, Star Trek
Yes.
This, much to my chagrin, and 2 of the newer ones, Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah. And which I don't even think about. I don't even think about Stid being shot at Paramount, but I guess there was.
It wasn't. It was shot at Sony.
Okay, but you went down.
I actually went down.
I know I knew this, but it still throws me when you say that.
I went down, but not. It's a very convoluted situation. I could not go as a Paramount security officer. I could go as literally a production assistant.
Okay.
To go because I could not. They did not want Sony to know who I really was.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, have we had this conversation? Now I suddenly want to go down this path, but maybe I should.
Yes.
Maybe I better stick it to the topic of the day.
We had to keep it low profile because I was unofficially doing security, but the reality is I wasn't doing actual security on the show.
Right. You couldn't throw people off the lot. You'd have to.
Well, Paramount, I'm sure Sony would have been miffed.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I worked with Gary on Enterprise.
I was going to say one last thing. The what got me was after all the years, speaking of the JJ movies, when the Beyond event, I always still call it the May 20th, was at the lot. And it was the first time there'd be anything Star Trek, especially for the public, at Paramount. And they named the one alley outside the original stages for Leonard Nimoy. But that was the hurry up and jumpstart promotion because we're so behind promotion effort for Beyond.
We won't go into that.
But I know, and it was a little bit, but here I am, and it's, lo and behold, it's Steve D'Erco still working security, and we're at a Star Trek event. Anyway, it was a great night, because I was like, and you were close to retiring then, but.
Yeah, I retired soon after that, yes.
Yeah, it was great to see you one more time working a Star Trek event. But yes, we're here to talk about Gary. And again, you worked all 4 years of Enterprise, and I just, if there's any doubting Thomases, I just want to put the boom, there we go.
Oh God, I look so grim.
You had
I think Gary and I were going for a grim look, both of us.
Well, now this is obvious by what he's wearing. This is In a Mirror Darkly.
Yes.
And and he's in the alternate.
I just sent you about 6 new pictures on your phone.
I can't. I can't. My phone's my camera, and I have to make them PDFs to show them here. It's very clunky.
Well, you can put them up later. I found a bunch more pictures of Gary and Vaughn.
You know what? We're going to edit this for the posting later. So talk about, you can, or at least kind of randomly talk about what's there.
In the pictures?
Yeah. But let's start off. Let's just say, so you worked 4 years. You saw regulars. You saw guest stars come and go. Of course, the recurring cast was, Vaughn Armstrong, Gary, a lot of the recurring folks.
Yes.
What comes to? I mean, you heard the news I get last night or this morning. What came to mind when you heard that Gary had passed?
I was very sad. Very sad. Gary was a great guy. Everybody liked him. He was very fun. He had a great sense of humor. He and Vaughn, when they were together, were just a couple of goofs. Because Vaughn's tremendous too. But the two of them just got along great. And that's why most of the pictures I have of the two of them, it's because most days when Gary was there, Vaughn was there.
Mm-hmm.
And just
inseparable.
Nice guy. Very professional. You know, nobody ever had a negative word about Gary, you know, being, you know, like some guest stars we had were less than, I won't say unfriendly, but let's just say they were a little more aloof.
Mm-hmm.
But Gary was in no way like that. He was one of the family.
Did you ever? Well, I mean, gregarious and you know, good natured and all that. Did you ever hear? Did he ever seem to have a down day, or did you ever have any whiff that he didn't enjoy putting on the ears and the makeup and doing it? I mean, I think he was glad to have the role and to have that Star Trek connection.
Absolutely. No, not that I never saw Gary, you know, in any kind of you know, anything other than professional and glad to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he you know, like I said, he melded right in with the crew and the cast. You know, he was great to work with. Every time when, you know, I would contact him, I talked to him, we'd chat. And some guest stars, you know, it's like, well, you know, he's the security guy. Gary, no, he was just somebody I hung out with.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't say anything negative at all. He was, you know, it was great to work with, especially though when he and Vaughn were together, they were just a couple of days. It was nice to hang out with both of them.
It's putting you on the spot, I know, but is there any particular Gary story that comes to mind?
Not particularly. No, honestly.
Practical joke or just accidental goof joke or prank with somebody else or anything?
Now, to be honest, remember my situation physically was not on set very often.
Right.
And so anything that would transpire on set, for the most part, I would not see or I would learn about secondhand. The best person to get those stories from, as you well know, Larry, is Dave Trotty.
Yeah, well, he's one. There's many, but yeah, Dave's great.
Dave is great, and I'm giving a shout out to Dave because Dave tells great stories.
Yep. Mike Demerit is another one that is that way.
And Demerit, both of them know how to relay a story that's funny of what happened on set. Yes.
Well, that's why they've both been a guest on Portal like a couple of times, both also. Yeah. And yeah. Mike did a book, I think, and Dave should do one.
I told Dave that, especially because of, you know, the amount of time Dave was on Trek, both feature film and the shows. But I can't seem to get him motivated to do it.
Yeah. Well, he's actually still working, I think. So that would do it.
Yes.
You're a little exhausted working those long days.
Yeah, he's a first AD on 911.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Do you yeah. Well, there were long days and long hours. I'm thinking that Gary was involved with some of those, like the Andorian shows and with the combat and
yes,
you know, stunt work and all of that, and having his own.
The Andorian shows definitely, you know,
and that would be Jeff Combs working. So we all love Jeff Combs,
who was another absolutely wonderful person to be around. He and Bakula would just insult each other nonstop, and they were great friends. I remember Bakula and the episode we had where I can't think of his name. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out. The guy from Quantum Leap.
Yes, his co-star in Quantum Leap.
Yeah. Again, great, really nice. But watching the two of them together was really a lot of fun to see the two of them bag on each other.
I thought it was that episode was great, but I wish that it had been more of a thing for him to take advantage of the.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Like I said, Combs, Dean Stockwell. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dan. Jeff and Scott had a great relationship, and like I said, it was funny to see them bag on each other. So Gary was there too. You know, Gary, again, watching all the guys together. It was really it was really a family atmosphere on Trek. We had a great crew. The cast was always always nice to everybody. And believe me, I've worked on shows where that wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Mike Reisner, who was one of our ADs?
Yes.
You ought to get Mike to tell you some of the stories about when he worked on. It was one of the medical shows with George Clooney.
Oh, well, ER, the early days of ER.
ER. Yeah, you ought to get Reisner to tell you some of the stories about when he worked on ER set. The kind of set you absolutely do not want to work on.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
chaotic management or personality?
Just a lot of tension.
Oh,
a lot of tension. Mike told us some stories that I was like, how do you even survive working on a show with that much tension on the set? Mm-hmm. But it happens. I mean, I've worked on shows where there was tension. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes with the territory.
Oh, well.
I know people who worked on Cheers, and Cheers was a great show to work on, but there was an element of tension on that set every time certain actors were on the stage together.
Wow. Well, again,
we got off track. I'm sorry.
Trek. No, I was going to say Trek had that too, and famously, if you were in the last couple of years of Voyager, there was it's all out in public now, and it's all been talked about and resolved, I think, pretty much. But even back in the day, the Jerry Kate.
I think that was way overblown.
Yeah. Oh, you think so?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I watched the two of them together, day in and day out, and to be honest, I never saw it. Maybe I'm just naive, but I've worked with people my whole life, and I never saw any obvious tension between the two of them. Maybe it existed in the production office, but on the set, no, I never saw it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, getting back to Gary here, this was, again, I said this is obviously In a Mirror Darkly, right? So he's not in the Vulcan robe here. And he got to do the beard and all that. Do you remember anything? Because In a Mirror Darkly was, anytime you do the alternate universe type show, everybody's fish out of water. Everybody's in a little bit different mood. The actors are all getting to do something different. The sets look different, and everybody's playing with the trope of, being my mean self or whatever, or my good self, if you're supposed to be a meanie. Anything come up from, aside from the fact that In a Mirror Darkly, I think filming part 2 was when they found out the cancellation came through.
Yeah. There was no, other than Vaughn getting to wear a different uniform and all the women getting to have bare midriffs.
Yeah.
Everybody was pretty happy. Finding out we weren't going to get picked up for season 5 by UPN was, it did cast a pall on the show, obviously, for people being out of work, but everybody felt Manny Cotto had really put the show back on good legs. Mm-hmm. And that we felt we were getting the traction we needed to go for the whole 7. It was just, we felt, boy, you know what? Just when we're starting to really get getting some speed, we find out that UPN's going to dump us.
Yeah. Well, you and the audience both.
It wasn't so much UPN as it was the guy who was head of CBS.
Yeah, Moonves.
Les Moonves. And I don't know if you've ever discussed the backstory for Moonves and Bakula.
No, why don't you tell? I mean, we're talking about Gary, but sure, I can't turn down a story like that.
Supposedly, and I use that advisedly. First of all, Les was not a Star Trek fan.
Right, we all know that, yes. Or sci-fi in general.
Sci-fi in general, yes. The running joke with CBS was he didn't want the people at home to applaud the show because it would turn off their TV set.
Okay.
Yeah. On off. That was the age range. Les was a big Matlock diagnosis murder type of guy.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, be this as it may, supposedly Les was an executive at NBC when the first Quantum Leap came on.
Oh.
And
Okay.
again, he wasn't a big fan of it. And you pick up rumblings that there was, he wasn't a big fan of Scott. So canceling Enterprise was, and supposedly, Les wanted to cancel Quantum Leap and he got overridden. This is kind of payback.
Yeah. Well, considering what we know about his character personality now, it's
I worked on a show
of course.
that second show that was also a victim of Les's payback to an actor. That a show that was taking its time slot and in the top 10 got canceled after the first season because our lead actor and Les had bad blood.
What was that?
I'd rather not say.
Okay.
I'll tell you off camera.
Okay. Well.
Yes, but yeah.
Has it been 20 years?
This was this was when I was still at the studio after Trek.
Okay.
It was unfortunate, but
the later aughts. Okay.
Les wasn't above dumping a show because he didn't like the actor.
Okay.
So there was.
Okay. Well,
anyway,
to steer it back to Gary here,
yes.
I didn't know if since that was an oddball show and that's the one we happen to have this photo from, I didn't know if maybe something had.
No, not really. Everybody on the show, was obviously sad, but they're professionals. You do what you do, and we wanted to make sure that the final episodes were all looking good, and they all, we went out on a good note.
Definitely. Well, then you had the finale. Yeah. Do you and this we're talking about Gary, but I just can't help but ask you this because a lot of the people have not heard you talk. If they're not in Portal 47, that's my audience, our members there have. So I will give this as a gift to everybody. Do you remember what filming the finale was like with Jonathan and Marina? Was there? I know. At the time, I just thought it was an odd way to end the show. I knew what they were trying to do. They were trying to, but I know Jonathan talked about being uncomfortable and awkward. And I remember that vibe, but I'm wondering, since you were there on the stages out in front of 8 and 9 here, do you remember the vibe? Obviously, there's the vibe of it being the last show and all that emotion.
Right.
But the fact of how they did it, what they chose to do. Do you remember that being a weird?
I can't pass judgment on the artistic value of the show.
Just asking what you remember the feel was. Yeah.
But the feel of the show, everybody liked having Jonathan and Marina there.
Right.
Everybody did. They were a pleasure. Jonathan and Marina are both wonderful people. I knew both of them from Insurrection and from Nemesis. Jonathan many times tried to kill me on a golf cart, but that's another story. But they were great, and everybody loved having them there. Whether they were uncomfortable with the script and how it was unfolding, that's really not for me to say.
Okay, well, I didn't mean what their feel. I mean, what did you pick up just in general? But that's fine if it's
no. I definitely had.
I mean, there was enough emotion with the ending happening.
Yeah, I definitely felt that they liked being there, and everybody liked having them there. That was, as people, and Jonathan and Marina are both very professional, but as people were delighted to have them there.
Oh, sure, and I just meant I've heard Jonathan say, sure, I enjoyed it, but I kept thinking, why are you? This should be their finale, and why are you having us in for their anyway?
Yeah,
turning it into a whole snow globe from TNG or something. So
it's a good point. But
yeah,
like I said, it's
anyway.
But
it was emotional enough without having that.
It's tough, and for me, 6 years was tough enough. We had people who had been on the show since the beginning of Next Generation, and that's really tough, because essentially, as I'm sure your viewers know and have heard, you're there for 15, 16, 17 hours, 5 days a week. These people become your family in all in all respects. You know, I went through a divorce with the support of everybody on the show, and they were a godsend. They become your family, and it's the breaking up of your family, and it feels like a divorce and a breaking up of your family. It feels like these are people I'm not going to see again. I may never see some of these people again that I've spent more time than with my real family. And yes, that psychologically was extremely hard. And like I said, I only had 6 years. Some of the people, like some of the crew who've been with the first season of Next Gen, I mean, for them, not seeing these people 5 days a week was going to be brutal.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I know in the ways of work in Hollywood, basically it was great security for 18 years. But now if you go out to get a job, people want to know why you've been out of the job pool for 18 years.
I had friends when I worked a short time during a break on Frasier. I talked to people and heard stories later because we actually, on our last season of Enterprise, one of the prop guys from Frasier worked with us, and he told us some stories, and some of the people on Cheers and then Frasier, 22 years, were the same people. And he said some of them, to touch on your point, some of them could not find work because they'd been off the market for 22 years. A lot of them retired.
Yeah.
A lot of them just simply couldn't find anybody who knew them anymore.
Yeah. Well, listen, Steve, I just wanted to have, I knew you were there and just not even talk about Gary, but just talk about the days and the vibe.
It's a loss. Gary was a great actor and and a great person.
Yeah. You know, I know he's, you know what, and I will say this, there are some who are more outspoken than others than him, but I didn't agree with his politics at all. But I knew that he, especially the last few years, he had been back at cons more often and was friendly with fans. He had a band that was playing at events. So, I was realizing that I'd never had a selfie with him myself. So there you go. But anyway,
politics was one thing that Mary, our producer, God love her, Mary, was not allowed to be discussed on the set. That was a verboten subject. He ever brought up politics?
Well, by 05, it feels like a different era anyway, as far as that kind of thing. Even that's worrying about how we all used to
much different
about our business and and people did their whatever. Anyway, listen, Steve, I'll let you. Sorry.
Thank you for having me.
Well, sure. I was going to say thanks for coming on and jumping in and doing this.
Oh, you're quite welcome. When you're retired, every day's Sunday, so hey.
All right. Well, listen, Steve, thanks so much, and thanks for sharing the photo. And we may post some more of those other ones.
I hope so.
Well. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much, man.
Barry, take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, you too, man. Okay, everybody. I did not dive into the chat over here. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, it's Gary, I will just say it. Gary was if you were a fan who just went to a convention and enjoyed the experience of being at a fan event, Gary was very cordial that way. If you don't go into people's socials and see all that, and I realize in the last 5-10 years, it's gotten increasingly hard to separate a fandom from the object of your fandom's politics and social outlook. I realize that. And I'm just trying to be blunt and honest here. So a lot of folks, and you know what? And Gary was hardly the most egregious, looking at you, Adam Baldwin, and many more actually along the way. And, we get to the state of things today, cancel culture, pro and con, and, it goes both ways. It's not just all of that. And, I think the other franchises have wrangled with that far more than Trek has. Trek, the nicest fandom in the, nicest franchise. So having said all that, I just, had a chance to mark a passing here. Obviously, it's been actually, Manny Cotto was this. We mentioned Manny there. He was a great guy. Saved the end of Star Trek for nothing, apparently, as we were just talking there. It wasn't gonna climb that mountain with Les Moonves in the way. And with UPN structurally just being gradually melting down to the point where it was sold for scrap and merged with the WB. But I just wanted to have a marker here, and with the format of Tuesdays Live now, we'll look to be doing that more often in the coming years when we have these kind of moments, more so than in the past. Not just actors, but our creators, our creatives along the way too. I didn't dive into the chat for questions with Steve just because, but I see, let's be blunt. We can honor somebody for their work and again, a whole generation of fans the last few years have had personal interactions with folks like Gary and had great positives out of it. So there is that. Yeah. I you guys are talking about it here. Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to back up here. Yeah, John, I'm with you, man. I didn't know about disgusting. I saw some of the posts. I just see him saying, I don't see him out screaming, but it's there. It's being public. But yeah, it's a moment you want to do that. And like I said, I've seen far worse examples. He more or less kept it to himself aside from his pages. And he didn't even go long on his pages either. Wasn't posting every day like an Instagrammer. Well, Gene wrote the novel of the motion picture analysis to jump over there. Hey, Christoph. Gary was difficult to accept on close look, but he was the first actor you witnessed mixing with fans at a con party in an approachable way. So see, again, guys, it's not always a black and white, situation. It's interesting. We'll do a few questions, guys. Hey, Dan, you love my column Explorer has a question from Greg. I know I didn't put him up to it. He answered, when guys, gals, peeps, every once in a while, every couple of months or so, if you're watching me on socials, I'll put out a call and say, used to, we got letters by mail, right? And they always go to the magazine. But my Q&A column that I've done since the late night, since 97 or 98, in what was the UK Star Trek magazine, now is the Star Trek magazine, official and licensed. Used to everything would be by letter. But now we got digitals and we, email and even now socials. So I will say every couple of months, if you're following me, I'll say, hey, it's time. Send me your questions, canon, production history, whatever. And we'll do our best to connect dots or dig deep and see what we can come up with. Or sometimes I'll go and talk to one of the creatives who will shed a little more light on it. Set me straight. Sometimes they are old gems of questions. They're golden oldies. And sometimes things are totally out of the blue or something nobody really thought of. So which is why we have the breadth and width of fandom. And yes, I did that once and pop up. And here's Greg Cox asking me something that I had settled in my head a long time ago. So anyway, it was fun. And a lot of things going on. Star Trek Online, 14 years. There you go. I hear the Trek Files podcast is 6 years old this week. And then we're getting this news that Destination Trek Germany is canceled. Okay. Nothing official, but that's out in the thing. Yes, John. I don't have a thing made up yet, but San Fran Con is going to be big too. I'm going to be a guest at the San Francisco Creation Con. It was being very minimalist, but now it's grown. We'll see. I have a panel slot too, which is still in the works. Might be something rather big and rather fun. So stay tuned for me to announce something about that, hopefully. But if you're coming to San Fran, we'll see you there. And I know Creation has already posted that thanks to the turnout response to the San Fran regional, they may be looking at going back to at least a small model of the old one, their old model, nothing like the 90s, but still 4 or 5 cities around the country, and starting with Chicago, which would be interesting. Yes. Oh, Jim, that is very kind of you, man. That's high praise. I appreciate that. Yes, I need to make a screenshot of this and have you be testimonial page. Yeah, I think I mentioned Gary was on Alien Nation. Scarabelli was played Data's his date interest, right? Appreciate that too, John. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see. Oh yeah, Arnie, I bet you would know Steve, working around the lot. Absolutely right. All right. The Beyond fan event had to be one of the best fan thank yous ever. Yeah, except that it was put on by a studio that had mixed with Star Trek before, and they went by the normal algorithms of no-shows, and they wound up with 200 legit people out front who couldn't get in, including people like Mike Sussman, who came in on one of my giveaways. Yeah, they imagined they'd have a lot more. You get invited if you're in LA, or even if you're around the country, and you get invited to get on the Paramount lot as a fan, you find your way to get your butt there. Or if you can't go, you give it to somebody else who can, one of your friends. There are no shows. There are no bored, tired no shows when it comes to an opportunity like that. And it had been at least 10 years. What did we say? It's from 05 to 6. Yeah, it'd been 11 years. Steve was one of the few that were still around, but he wasn't in event planning. I'm sure that nobody there in event planning at the core of the event had any clue that they should throw the book out the window and just know that if you got somebody a free pass in LA to a Star Trek event on the lot, they'd be there, especially with a new movie. Let's see. Well, hey, Myth Dustard, sorry to be breaking the news. Yeah. Oh, that's right. He had been on Shuttlepod Show. There you go. And over the years, too. I'm sure we had an interview with him in Communicator back in the day. I never did one personally with him. We assigned that one off. Oh, well, okay. Again, sorry. Sorry to be the bearer. Yes. And I want to, again, reinforce this. For some reason, we were having maddening issues with getting Steve on either his phone or his laptop, but we persevered. So thank you for your patience persevering. This was not a typical day at all. I'm starting to think this is what I get for trying to be fancy. Yes, and he had the one-off appearance on Voyager. Didn't even mention it. Let me see. Hey, Dan. Well, considering that the image is from out front of the stage and they overlapped, I'll say if you think so. I didn't consult and look at call sheets to remember exactly. Or when he's into the uniform, but sure thing. I do remember it was part 2's technically their shoot when the word came down about the final word came down about cancellation. The change in management of what? Do you mean Moonves taking over and running it instead of the little tin pot would-be suits of UPN? Very, very aware. Very aware. The whole 4th season, guys, the whole 4th season came this close to not happening. They were ready to cut it off. They'd already been given and this comes from a source very close, and I was shocked when they felt comfortable enough to tell me all this, but right after the cancellation and the end of the show, season 2 was the warning that season 3 better pull it off or else, which is why you had the Zindi arc. And then season 3 didn't cut it, and it was only because they wanted the old 100 episodes to syndicate still back in those days, even though, TiVoing was coming in, DVRing was coming in, and it was only because the studio would agree to a lesser budget with more input on money, so that the network was putting in less money, that they got the 4th season. And Enterprise had some incredible episodes ending. Maybe not the finale, but yes. You still haven't, Carl. You heard, you smelled something in the package, and you didn't want to. Yeah. When was the last time I saw Gary? I'm sure at Vegas. I'm sure passing by and saying hello. Hello, Joshua. Thank you for coming by. And again, it's not outlandishly mixed. He wasn't that public unless you were an online person and you dug and looked up and read up on the folks involved with shows. He wasn't, I don't think, so much out there. But, again, his politics, his social outlook were a little on the conservative side or beyond conservative. But it didn't seem to affect his persona when he was standing there in your signing pictures, which was, like, as Steve said, was the old way things used to be, until we got to a point where everything permeated everything. There you go, Carl. Met him back in 2004. The show was still running. Yep. You would think that as they look into the catalog of dead shows they're just sitting on, that they would. I don't know about the cost of digitally restoring and remastering, unless you're getting it to the point where it's a one click. The way you can restore old photos now, basically 1 or 2 clicks. Oh, hey, Joshua, thank you too. 6 years, the Trek Files. Oh, that's too much, Josh. That's amazing. Thank you, though. Thank you. You know what? I should start doing this. Boom. The Lord of Shakari's work. Very good. Oh, he's got his band on YouTube. He got his band. There you go. Sons of Kirk. That was the name of his band. Well, we'll see, Rose. We'll see. Oh, yeah. Very true. Well, the shuttle pod show's in for some change anyway, so we will see. Well, that's interesting, Josh, and I don't think we've ever spoken directly, maybe. I don't think. But that's an interesting way to put it. I normally hear vendors talk about, like Comic-Con vendors, and they'll say Star Trek fans are the nicest fandom. Having you say it here from the other extreme here, Trek fans are the far less abrasive and angry that any who come into your mentions and threads. There you go. Wow, there you go, Glenn. Several long and memorable conversations. Well, I'll just, he didn't have the busiest table, but he was there for folks who wanted to stop. Was he of Gods and Men's fan film? I think he was. I think so. Yes. And came to one of the, oh, wow. Okay. Very good. Oh, one of the, you're talking about the cast and crew reunions, right? Okay. I was thinking of some of the LA away teams pre-Vegas picnics. Oh, you know what, Arnie? LZ came to the picnics, the cast and crew picnic reunions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cliff. Cold Fire. Well, Cliff did the Best of Both Worlds, part 1 and 2. And many, he was, I'm off my stats. He was one of the top 3 most prolific TNG directors, if not the most. Cliff Bowl, the namesake of the Bolians, because he directed Allegiance. Not Allegiance. What am I saying? He directed, well, the first one with Captain Reeks. Conspiracy? Anyway, Cliff was very gruff. He was very efficient. They loved him for that, but I do know that he's the reason why the Fathom previews of the TNG Blu-rays stopped happening. Because even though it was done by the book and it was done, no one made a penny. He complained and he thought that the directors and actors should be getting residuals for all of that screening, the doubleheader screening, especially when the season 3 and 4 was the Best of Both Worlds. And it had been set up legitimately that after all the marketing, all the costs were, any profit went to charity. There was a designated charity. It was all done by the book, exactly the way that kind of a screening is done, even when it's a commercial entity that fronts it. But yet he kind of raised a stink about it, and then they stopped having him, and then he passed away within a year of that. So go figure. No, but I did know Cliff. I interviewed him for The Companion back in the day. I have pictures with him at his house. He collected classic vintage cars, like 50s, 60s hot rods and things. And I have a picture of him with a 50s Merc somewhere. Yeah, I did know him, not infinitely well, but I talked to Rick Colby more than Cliff Bowl, but I did. Oh, okay. Missed you there. Oh, but I'll answer for Steve. Everybody knew. Everybody read the trades. You were there. It was the gossip of the day. If you worked at a corporation and it changed management, wouldn't you know? Maybe you wouldn't know the fly on the wall boardroom talk, but you sure know, you were aware of it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, Arnie. The irony of the situation, one of the best years of Trek. Well, the 4th year of Enterprise was what I always thought the show would be all along. But, Rick and Brandon, not original series fans. I think it's already been declared a Twisted Hollow fantasy or something. But then, of course, Dan, of course you love the finale of Enterprise. Yeah. Well, this is very true. This is very true, Robert Cairo, excuse me. Obviously, we know we need the yin and the yang for everything, but it's when you push the outer extreme envelope. Yeah. And intolerance. There can be intolerance on the left as well when patience grows short. When your passion, as I said on my kind of my piece for, if you didn't see it, I did a Daily Star Trek News asked me to do an essay, be a guest post. And I did, and it was talking about when your passion takes you away. One of the reasons it's harder for fans to talk is, and some people, you might say it's about the content, but everybody's always had opinions. It's some people we've forgotten how to rein that in, or when you care too much and let that take over you being able to have some arm's length. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the retcon for it. This is one of several retcons, Glenn. It was just a bad holodeck, badly scenarioed holodeck program. Yeah. Well, there you go. Don, you're the second person that I know that enjoyed the finale. Aside with, I love everything about Archer's speech and I love being in the guest audience. That was an awesome personal day. It was just the aliens out of nowhere killing Trip. Yeah, all of that was, and people not thinking that Jonathan Marino or Riker and Troy were the best framed way to thank the whole franchise. Exactly. And there you go. Well, there you go. You'll always treasure those, Cairo. Myth Dustards. Myth Dustards. You really need to pay attention more, Myth. No, Dominic announced right before the holidays that he was stepping away from the show and anything connected with it, but wished them well and was just not going to be part of it, and didn't elaborate why. But he, didn't seem like it was. Don't think it's a health issue or anything like that for him. So we will all see. We'll all see. Connor was also on the Trek Talks 3, and they talked about John. It was a solo session, and my friend John Champion was his interviewer, and they talked briefly about the show would be in flux and changing without Dom. Oh, hey, Josh. Well, that's very... Well, thank you, man. I hope we can do that soon sometime too. Yeah. I forget what part of the country you're in, but if I ever get back east and we're working on that, hopefully somehow, we will do it. You said conspiracy out loud before you realized he couldn't hear you. Conspiracy. Yes. Well, welcome aboard. I did weekly and then print news for off and on for 10 years in daily, and before that off and on summers and things, 2 or 3 years in weekly community newspapering. But yes, many a night spent at a late night city council and school board meeting, many a night waiting for the executive session to come back. Okay. Your mom loves Spock's brain. Well, there you go. See, there's no accounting for taste. Let's see. Yeah, this is what we now call serialized storytelling. One episode had the mine, the next one goes to the station to fix it. Yes. Well, this was it. There was nothing wrong with having that cool premise, but it was just weird to have it be the finale. They were all sick. Rick and Brandon, first of all, stepped back in when the flow had been Manny in the room that he had, to kind of jerk things back to the sensibility of people kind of writing Star Trek, modern Star Trek by modern Star Trek numbers, but wanting to write a series that took place before Kirk's time. I think we've all seen what happens sometimes with that, but also just the fact that they kind of jumped back in when the flow had gone one way. It was like, oh, look, it's another Brandon story of 4 aliens, none of whom have names or species numbers that we've ever seen before. It's just more random aliens thrown in. Aside from that whole kill-off trip thing, because we're going to give it some gravitas and weight. But you don't do that in the finale. You do that in the middle of fine. You do fine. Yeah, Trip is fine. Just saw him a couple of weeks ago. Well, like I said, he was just on the Trek Talks virtuals. Well, this would have worked, Dan. And I said Terra Prime and Bachnor. Terra Prime and what is it? Demons, the two-parter, was a perfect ender. Not a great ender to be ending at all, but people already think of it as the real finale, and the group shot at the end as they're founding the coalition of planets, because we haven't had the Romulan War yet. Right. Oh, awesome. Capital idea there, Myth Dustards. Always listen to the new Trek Files on iTunes at your lunch break. Very good. Glad you have a system. Yeah. Glenn, I don't think that was an issue. I'm not going to get into this and talk for anybody else, but I don't, the decision to leave was totally his, from what I understand. Alrighty, guys, gals, peeps. That's going to do it. That's going to do it. And you know what? Since we've talked about the Trek Files on 6th anniversary, we talked about Gary there with Steve. I have not had a chance yet to, for one thing, thank our Patreons. And you know what? I've had new folks. So, guys and gals, I'm going to get my new folks from January in on the list. And this is by no means thinking that I have not caught up here, but I do want to thank our current Patreoners here, our TTL Club, right? Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, and Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Glinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Jazemski. And our live wires there. Boom. Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Helbjörn Gunnjonsson, Alan Hoenzi, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. Casey always giving me a little kick there. And again, if you want to join in, we've got more things planned this year on several fronts across everything Trekland and across the channel. The YouTube channel, I can say it as well. I actually do have several series on my channel. I actually make the word channel make sense, guys. $5, $10. It's our simple Patreon, patreon.com/TreklandLive. Appreciate everybody who jumps in and helps out and contributes to what we're trying to do here. It's going to be an interesting year. I've said that already. Lots of things on the way, including your chance still to come to LA when you find yourself here for business or pleasure. Take a Trekland Treks with me. Yeah, get a hold of me in advance. We'll work out the day, work out where you want to go. We will tour actual location sites, indoors mostly. I mean, mostly outdoors, some indoors. So yes, go enjoy the treks, the tours, the sets, the indoor sets, studio sets at the Star Trek Tours upstate New York there with my friend James and all of his gang. They're having special events too. If you want to see the locations around LA anyway, of course, all the modern shows that are in Canada are up around Toronto. But Picard and then everything Enterprise and back, there's over 50 places, and some of them are famous. And yes, you can get to Vasquez on your own. But if you want to be led with the info, with some takeaways, and you want a wrangler to help you wrangle not just your cosplay and props, but LA traffic and knowing your way around things, the ins and outs, reach out. We'll work it out well before you get here. We'll have everything under control as much as we can. Can't do anything about the weather, but hopefully if we're out of the rainy season, we won't have any hiccups. So treklandtreks.com. Love for you to do that. And hey, I mentioned Trek Files. Yes, the new episode is up. Luann Fortier is back. The multiple years president of the William Shatner fan letter exchange. This is what we're doing in the 70s and 80s, guys. But also from the perspective of having gone to live events with Leonard, with Shatner, with Gene back in the day, and that's the subject. And the subject of our documents, although they're more like souvenirs this week. Anyway, check out the Trek Files when you can at roddenberry.com, or just our Facebook page is the easiest place with the things. Other than that, yeah, the socials are all still here. At Larry Nemechek on Twitter X, especially Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Spread the word. Larry Nemechek's Trekland. And portal47.net. Just jump in. We've been picking up new members right and left inside. I think the Silly Holiday Special is still up. I need to take it down. If you jump on it before I get it taken down, oops, that's good on you. Anyway, thanks again for joining us today. Thank you again for your patience. And look, if you're watching us later on YouTube, try to join us live on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch on a Tuesday, nominally at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern, 9 UK time, 10 Central Europe. Occasionally we have glitches. Today was a big glitch, but if you're with us live, you can jump in the chat and be part of the chat from day one, square one. Watching us later, though, please leave a comment. We have had some really good commentary threads posted on YouTube lately. Love to see you there. Love to have you involved in everything Trekland. Again, thanks everybody for the support on Patreon. We have a TeePublic store too. Don't forget the lovely computer bags are just one of the items you can get something from Trekland on as a logo. Appreciate all that too. Much less. It's not just t-shirts, And they have a sale twice. They have one of those 30-40% off sales at least twice a month. They just roll them out. I have nothing to do with it, but there they are. Anyway, I have a lot to do with appreciating the fact that you all are here with us again. Thanks again for the support. Thanks for being part of the community and the chat. Again, 2024 is going to be an interesting year as we sort everything from the streaming industry down to the order of Star Treks and the convention scene. There's just so much going on here and so much in the outer world. And I look forward to sharing a lot more of it here on Trekland Tuesdays Live with you guys. So please, till we meet next time, which just to say, we'll see me at least twice for Virtual TrekCon 4 is coming up. We have some cool things with that, especially on Thursday and Friday. Same weekend, if you are headed for Gallifrey 1, the nominal Doctor Who convention, this is all President's Day weekend in February. I'll be there on the Saturday, and then I have a very special event going on Sunday that keeps me away from both of those. Huge weekend, lots of huge things happening in Trekland. More to talk about soon. Well, there you go. There you go, everybody. Please, please, please stay healthy. Do all the things. It's winter flu, RSV, COVID even season. Take care out there. Do all the things, would you please? And stay woke. And I mean by stay woke is be alert to all the things you did not realize about. Check the sources. It may be too different, but then yet again, people wake up and say, I had no idea about that situation, that piece of history. Yeah. Don't bury your head in the sand, would you please? That's what I always thought a good Trek fan was all about. Being alert to the unknown, whether it's a Horta or anything else. Just truckle, everybody.